It's really hard to believe that Tekken 7 has been around for almost 9 years and still has a devoted player fanbase. Tekken fans will be pleased to know that Tekken 8 is finally here, and as someone who just finished playing the game, it is every bit as great as its predecessor. In fact, just saying that is kind of like an understatement, since it seriously raises the bar for fighting games in general and truly excels as a Tekken title. Tekken 8 had a lot of expectations to meet. Tekken 7 in my opinion felt practically perfect, and I couldn't see how Bandai Namco would be able to improve on something that was already flawless in my opinion. However, I am happy to report that Tekken 8 in my opinion surpasses all of the ridiculously high expectations I had set upon it with ease. My initial thoughts after finishing this game is, how is any fighting game ever going to compare to this? This game basically has everything you could ask for. Over-the-top action, phenomenal storytelling, engaging characters, and addictive game modes that will see you come back again and again and again. So what exactly makes the game so good and it's so worth picking up at lunch? The first thing I want to talk about this game is the story and the narrative. Tekken 8 basically follows from the events of Tekken 7, so there are some mild story spoilers to follow, so if you want to go into it blind, in short, Kazuya defeats his father Heihachi Mishima and continues his global conquest using G Corporation. However, this isn't the end of everything as we know it, because Jin is still alive and he's still around and he has a score to settle with his daddy. Tekken 8 in my opinion is a very newcomer friendly, since it includes various story scenes which can be viewed from the gallery. These recap the story so far and helps onboard with new players into the franchise's rich long history. I mean, additionally, if this helps, Bandai Namco has also uploaded a recap video onto YouTube which covers the events of the previous game in around like what, 5 minutes? And it's narrated by Brian freaking Cox, the guy who plays Logan Roy, probably TV's most ruthless parent since what, Tywin Lannister and Livia Soprano? Like, it doesn't get any better than that when marketing your video game. I would highly recommend giving this a watch before diving into the game. The story of Tekken 8 is about what you would expect from the series, but they really dialed things up to a notch with regards to the cinematic flares applied. I mean, the introduction scene alone is enough to grip you honestly, and without spoiling too much, the rest of the game follows through with some of the most entertaining fights and plenty of absurd visual spectacles. That's all the information I will spill on the story, as it's a game mode that must be experienced yourself to truly appreciate the game. However, you can expect to see a host of over-the-top and jaw-dropping scenes to play out. If you thought Kazumi Mishima throwing a tiger at you or transforming into her devil form were like a wild sights in Tekken 7, then your mind is going to combust when you witness the sights of Tekken 8. You probably don't think of fighting games as having intricate stories to tell. I mean, it's just not what they're known for. However, that's where Tekken as a series differs and why I was so enthralled with every moment of the story of Tekken 8. The narrative throws so many twists and turns at you that I found myself on the edge of my seat throughout the entirety of it. Tekken 8 takes you on an impactful journey and really allows you to connect with Jin as a person. Not only is it a great showing for Jin, but for every character on the base roster, with the game giving nearly everyone a moment to shine. Characters like Lily, Asuka, Xiaoyu, Lars, Lee, Leo, Leroy, Claudio, Zafina, Alyssa, Victor, Jun Kazuma, and even Panda have moments to sparkle brightly, which I truly appreciate and love to see. If you want an example of the love this campaign has, there is a full-fledged callback to Tekken 6 scenario campaign mode. While it's only a brief moment, we get to take a break from the regular 1v1 combat and can face off against multiple enemies at once using a variety of characters. This section only lasts around like 10 or so minutes. It's such a loving piece of fan service that helps Tekken 8 blossom into a gorgeous video game flower you didn't know you wanted. When I reached the end of the game and watched the dust settle as the credits began to roll, I was incredibly satisfied. I had to sit down for a few moments and allow the journey Tekken 8 had taken on me to sink in just for a while. I needed to let the adrenaline that was still pumping through my body just to calm down, because the final fight was such a galactic marvel that it will just take your breath away. Because if you know this iconic introduction in every Tekken game, oh yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. Tekken 8 is phenomenal and an absolute highlight of the entire game. It's pretty safe to say that I am incredibly hyped up for the story of Tekken 9 going forward. Especially with that cliffhanger ending. I mean, what was that about, huh? What was that about, huh? The next category I want to talk about is the special style. Successful fighting games tend to be either extremely complex or extremely simple.
Timeline.
Timeline.
Timeline. Timeline. Timeline. Timelines. Timeline. 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 Timeline.
Yeah, remember that game? Let's pretend this game never really existed in the first place. But Tekken strikes to be the perfect balance of both, with the game now including a special style mode that can be toggled on or off in battle. This mode allows newcomers to the franchise or those unfamiliar with fighting game mechanics to still enjoy the game since it massively simplifies how the game plays. While using the special style controls, you can simply press any of the face buttons on your controller to trigger a special move or a combo attack. You can then string together combos fluidly without worrying too much about, more complex button inputs. This is truly great for those who have, issues with more hardcore combos, while not detracting from the game in any way. If you don't want to use the special style, you can simply choose not to toggle it on and continue to play the game with more technical button inputs listed in the moves list. Another highlight is how each character in Tekken 8 plays differently. Yoshimitsu can still use his sword in any flashy combos, while Shayu's Phoenix style attacks float together perfectly while dealing tons of damage. The players can easily spend hours and hours getting to know their favorite characters, and how each character plays and responds to other characters in matchups is such a huge part of the competitive scene. Tekken 8 is going to keep the gamers enthralled with its hefty roster of 32 playable characters. It helps no end that each character also looks fantastic and is quite customizable. In fact, the entire game looks visually stunning with Unreal Engine 5 powered graphics. This game's level of detail and visual flair really does justify it as a new gen exclusive, and it's almost certainly the best Tekken game yet. I mean, that's another video for another day, but so far this may be my favorite Tekken game. The floors of the dojo have been lowered, making it easier than ever for newcomers to step into the ring. You can really see the love and care put into this game, with the character models that are so incredibly detailed, I must say.
気をつけてくださいね。
Oh boy, no comment, but going back, attack animations feel great and the effects have really been amped up to 100. And then you add up the destructible environments and the special attacks that both look and feel so great to pull off. Especially the finale of the story mode where the fight scenes did not hold back. I mean, my boy Jin Kazama basically pulled out everything in his arsenal. Karate, Mishima style, Kazama style, all to show that he has grown beyond his father and the blood feud that began with him and Heihachi. The music having an upbeat high tempo in contrast to Tekken 7's desperate struggles shows how Jin is bringing hope to the world as opposed to Heihachi trying and failing to stop Kazuya. The last few moments of the story was just Jin Kazama being a straight up killer. The Mishima Karate which he learned from Heihachi, the Kazama Ryu from Jun Kazama, the Kyokushin Karate he learned to replace the Mishima Ryu, all of those to make Jin who he really is. He really accepted all of himself, even with the devil's power. And you know what? I might as well give major props to Kazuya. Even when he's all alone, he still continued to fight to the end. He really is the hero who could have been. Even, in the first few Tekken games, he was kind of like the protagonist, but he turned out to be a genocidal maniac. Like, Kazuya is just a straight up gangster, like, I swear. The dude's whole drive and motivation since his character returned in the 4th Tekken game was to master the devil in order to gain ultimate power. I kinda expected him to suffer some sort of villainous breakdown when Jin said that their devil powers were completely erased from existence. But what does Kazuya say? Bitch, who cares? I still got these hands. I made you and I can break you. That's why me personally, he's one of my goats when it comes to like fighting game antagonist. He's up there for sure, just like his dad. And going back to Jin, I really love when Jin asked his mom if he can even desire life. He bears so much guilt from his past actions and thinks that the only way he can atone for his sins is through his death. But Jun tells him that his death also affects those he wants to protect and that he shouldn't always put himself second. Jin finally deciding to live for the people that matter and to accept his past actions to move forward were really well done in this game. Jin should realize that death is not atonement, because choosing death would just leave the people that he had harmed to pick up the pieces themselves. That's no different from turning away from his own sins. By accepting to live carrying his sins, Jin can now truly atone for what he had done by doing good things. Whether he's forgiven or not, well, that's not for us to decide. And I can definitely feel like there's so many people that are just so mad at me right now, and they're going to say stuff like, yes, but Jin was the reason World War III started and killed so many people. So the bullcrap of like Jin having to protect the people closest to him and move on is definitely bullshit. It's like, okay, you killed many people, but life goes on and you aren't going to be punished? Tekken is just trying so hard to make Jin Kazama the good guy. Like, bruh, literally the same thing happened to Kratos, and he's one of the most beloved video game protagonists out there. And even in Jin's case, even though him starting World War III was pretty pointless in the long run in my opinion, it was never really out of some selfish desire for world domination like the usual Mishimas like his grandpa and his dad, but because we thought that he could finally eradicate the root of a lot of the previous evils caused by Kazuya and Heihachi. That being said, it still failed miserably and he still fucked up a lot of people's lives. But just like Kratos, he accepted his past sins and wants to move forward with his life. But if Miguel still wants to kill him, I can't be mad because he has a valid point. And I would also add that in order to revive Azazel and extinguish everyone's devil factor, he didn't have to become evil on his own, but he had to become evil out of necessity. I can even relate to Jin personally because sometimes when I overreact, and when I do overreact, it's like devil Jin. It's like you can't even control it and you end up hurting everyone including your family. That moment when Jin was finally able to tame his demons was literally amazing and probably one of my favorite moments in Tekken history. I personally wouldn't want to remove my anger emotions entirely. I merely just want to tame it like Jin did with his demons, because I think, in my opinion, gaining inner peace by dealing with your inner demons is probably important. Since our thoughts can be powerful things that can influence our actions and decisions, the inner voice we sometimes hear can hinder achieving happiness and reaching our full potential. It is vital to realize the existence of such a thing so we can address it and do something about it. If we do, we maybe be able to discover more about ourselves and figure out what we should do with our lives. So we shouldn't completely ignore our inner demons, as they may be able to help us become aware of things we need to give attention to and know ourselves better. Tekken 8 has a depth to it that can feel overwhelming, but it's also a game that doesn't force you to take it all in at once. They call it the Electric Wind God Fist for a reason. With only one touch, you'll definitely feel the spark. This is the King of Iron Fist, a sumptuous feast for the senses that feels like a truly new generation fighting game in the ring. But being the best at it would be quite a feat. But the journey to bettering yourself is a whole other story, and one that's rewarding to tackle.